Several people have asked me to demonstrate how to trick Excel into doing a multi-part function. So I thought I would just take a simple model like this, where we have a marginal cost of capital superimposed over an investment opportunity schedule, like you might have to do in a case or in homework assignments. If you have to present, you definitely want your graph to look professional, and Excel does a pretty good job of that. This is a drawn graph in a paint program, and we're going to kind of duplicate this result using Excel. To do so, we're going to have to make sure that we place as our first series the funding, which is along the bottom here, which goes from 0 to 3 million. So I'm going to type into Excel dollar funding and just put my critical points here. 0 is a critical point because both of these functions start at 0. The next critical point is 1 million. That's the first breakpoint. And put that in twice. I'll show you why in just a second. Next critical point is at 1.5 million. The next critical point is 2 million. And the final critical point is 3 million. Now we have two series here. One is the MCC, and the other is the Investment Opportunity Schedule, IOS. So I'm just going to type those in, so I'll have labels there. The marginal cost of capital starts out at 0 funding at 10%. So type in 0.1 at 0. At 1 million, it is still at 10%, so type in 0.1 again. But also at 1 million, it goes to 12%, so type in 0.12. At 1,500,000, it is still at 0.12, as it is until you get to 2 million, which starts out at 0.12 and then goes to 0.14. And then at 3 million, it's still at 0.14. So what I've done here is I've simply recorded the values of the MCC schedule at every level of funding. At 0, we have 10%. At 1 million, we have 10% and 12%. So here's 1 million, 1 million, one at 10%, one at 12%. Across this breakpoint, the 12% doesn't change. So when we get to the 1.5 million, we still have 12 and 12. And that stays the same up until we hit the $2 million range. And at that point, we have both 12 and 14%. So here's 2 million, 2 million. We go from 12 to 14. And then it stays at 14 all the way up to 3 million. The iOS schedule, on the other hand, has a different pattern. We start out at 16%, 0.16 at 0.0 in total funding. That's going to stay the same all the way up to 1.5 million. So 0.16 stays the same here up to 1.5 million. Now what happens at 1.5 million? We go from 16 down to 9. So 0.09 for the rest of the series. And now we've filled in the requirements for a graph. Now, a question I've gotten is, what kind of graph will actually give you this result? And it may not be intuitive, but we're going to actually use a scatter plot, and we're simply going to connect the dots here. So if you go to Insert and you go over to the charts and select Scatter, there's several different ones we could use. We could do one with markers here with straight lines across the top of the series. I'm going to select this one because the square markers at every point is not, it's kind of disconcerting. So we want smooth lines. Select this, and it puts in a chart that looks kind of like this. Make it a little larger so that we can work on it a little bit, doctor on it. First of all, you probably don't need the legend here, so if you click on that and right-click, you can delete that. It makes the presentation a little bigger. Second thing you might want to do is to format the axes. Now, this is kind of wasted space down in here, so really all I need is from 0.8 up to about 0.17. So if you double-click any of these numbers, it brings up a dialog box, and you can actually select your minimum as a fixed amount here. And what do I want as my minimum? Let's use 0.08. So instead of 0.00, I'm going to say 0.08. And my maximum I'll set at 0.17 instead of 0.18. And you see what happens as I do that is the relevant range of the graph comes into view here. Also, this is kind of wasted space out here, so I really just need this to go up to 3 million. So I can double click any of these, a similar legend comes up. And I want it to start at 0, but I want to end it at the maximum value of 3 million. This is at 3.5. This is scientific notation, so 3.5 times e to the 6. So I'm just going to change that to 3.0, and that'll stop it at 3 million. And close, and you see that it stops at 3 million this time. This is a really close approximation. This chart right here is a really close approximation of what we had in the picture before. Let's see if I can bring that up. And then I'll move this over. So you can see that this is really very similar to my initial image. And it's precision. It looks good, and basically you can use this. Widen the Excel back out here, and you can right-click on this and copy it, move it into a program like Paint or some other type graphic program, and you can type in the percentages here. You can make notations on it. You can do things to the graph that like we do in class or like we did in the textbook. So labeling of all this material here, you could label this the MCC, you could label this the iOS. Also, what you can do in Excel, since costs are typically in red, you can change the color of this series to red, change the color of this series to green, and make it look a little better. But basically, that's how you can trick Excel into doing a superimposition of an iOS and an MCC on one graph.